So we went back to campus all excited about our wedding, which would be on Baccalaureate Sunday at Johnson C. Smith University. Who would know that as soon as we were married and had our first child and moved to Rocky Mount, North Carolina, that we would be thrust immediately into racism. The year was 1955, not too long ago. Yet Martin King was already active. And when we were in Charlotte, we were with the civil rights, the sit-ins, where at the college level, we would sit in restaurants. They would not serve us, but we didn't walk out sometimes until the end of the day. And the people at Walmart, Walgreens, or wherever we would try to eat, said, well, they would laugh when we left, because in the middle of that, we would burst into speaking Latin. Most of us were in the choir, and we were singing a lot of songs in Latin, and we would just use that language, and they would come by and look at us and say, they're not even Americans. Oh, doing all that. Adoramus te Christe, what is that? But a lot happened. Jim found himself leading the civil rights movement in that area with ministers who knew Martin personally. And we would sneak Martin Luther King into town to lead demonstrations. And here's when we really could have gotten killed. And I will not prolong this, but it's in my heart right now as I know I have to go talk to Christine, his sister, pretty soon. During that time, the undertaker, the African-American undertaker, would take his fleet of cars to Raleigh, assuming to pick up a body. Nobody would pay them any attention. They would sneak Martin Luther King into one of those cars, and with this huge delegation looking like a funeral, we would drive into Rocky Mount. I never knew where Martin stayed. All I knew was the importance of music, because by that time we had, for the 4 or 5 years, we had a city choir, and I was an accompanist for it. And this was going to be our first time bringing Martin Luther King into an arena heavily guarded by blacks who learned to handle guns all of a sudden because police would not get involved. And Jim said to me, all right, I can't tell you where Martin is. I can't even tell you when he's going to arrive, but I won't be up front. We've got it so that he's carefully guarded, and we want you to start inflammatus at the point that we're walking in. And so I said, we're going to do it in English or Latin? He says, do the Latin. Won't nobody know what you're singing about anyway. So, I said, how will I know that Martin is there? He said, I'll say something. Tell the guy to say something about blackberry pie. And when the message, and we'd been singing, I guess we'd been an hour just singing, and the people were gathering, and we were all scared. And by that time, a gentleman walked up and he said, your husband said he wants blackberry pie tonight. That meant Martin was on the way in. So I got word to the director, and we started Inflammatus. And with all the beautiful music from this huge choir, and the delegation of gentlemen, they could not see that Martin was in the middle of the delegation. We got Martin so that he was on the platform. And he gave one of his speeches and thanked Rocky Mount for being one of the far eastern cities to take seriously the civil rights movement. And so into that with everybody standing, I was crying. And all I knew was when I got to the home of the undertaker, there was Martin. And I have that picture on my wall, incidentally. You may want to come by my house. Martin was sitting with us, having dinner and teasing me because his wife, of course, Coretta, was a singer, and he says, Coretta probably wants to hear from me. She would like to come and give a concert. So that was one of the high moments. There are many more because we even forced two of our children into a school. It was the first integration of an elementary school on the east coast of North Carolina. And the test case was Craig Costen, the gentleman you just met, the knee baby, as I said. He was a knee baby then, versus the city of Rocky Mount to get him into this white school. And we had a lawyer who had done so much of this. He simply said to us, let me see the young man at least an hour before. Craig was 6 years old. I was 7. He was 6. And my husband looked at him and says, this is a tough character, so can I get in there about an hour and a half? Because the thing we want you to do is to just tell him not to talk. You do the talking. Because if the judge asks him anything, he will say, I don't want to do this, I want to go to my black school. So Craig won the case that day, and that opened elementary schools in eastern North Carolina. So, long story, but it's my story, my civil rights story for the day, because it involved the children. It was one of our peak moments. Then we moved to Atlanta, and I never knew when Dr. King would be either at our house or the house we were visiting.